Good day, everyone, and thank you for stopping by my YouTube channel today. Today we will be working on the November Stitch With Me project. November has arrived here in Vermont. Of course, it's arrived everywhere, but by that I mean November weather has arrived here in Vermont somewhat. We've seen our first snowflakes. They were brief. Very brief. I'm not sure they even lasted 5 minutes, but they were snowflakes nonetheless and were very exciting. And now we anxiously await our first significant snow. I would be happy with 2 to 3 inches of snow. I just enjoy the falling snow and our world turning white. It makes everything so quiet. I adore it. I don't think you can live here and not enjoy the seasons. It would make for a miserable life if you lived here and you didn't enjoy the seasons, because we certainly get them. All manner of seasons. We even have a few of our own. Stick season, which I must say, stick season can be tough. Last year, I didn't think we'd ever see green again. It was brown here for a very long time in the spring. But we got through it, as we always do. Okay, so I wanted to dive right in to our November Stitch With Me project. This month we are doing Olde Father Christmas. This is one version of him. I do a couple of different versions so I can stitch different things, try different things, and see what I want to do, what I want to keep, what I want to change, etc. This is just one version of him. I added a little bit of, excuse me, wool, and I needle felted it there to give it a little more Santa. I feel like it gives him, excuse me, a vintage look, which I like, but I don't think I'm going to do that for the purposes of this video. I think I would like to keep him more primitive, and there's some things that I've figured out along the way that I'm going to do, and I'll explain a little bit further as we go along. But if you would like to create this project, you will need to purchase the template. The template can be found in my latest book of templates called Life in Our Little Brown House. It is a book of templates, but it also has a short story, a couple of recipes. So it's not just templates. There are 11 templates, Olde Father Christmas being one. But there are also, there's recipes, there's autumn, there's templates or designs for each season, as you can see. All black and white templates except for the one on the cover. That's the color. The cover has a color, but you also, this same design is in here in the book in black and white form. So if you would like to purchase that, you can do so on my website. It is listed under my books, but it is also listed under the Stitch With Me series tab, so you can find it there. And let me set that aside. I also wanted to mention, Olde Father Christmas, this particular design is a remake or redesign of my original Father Christmas. Let me locate him. This was my original Father Christmas. It was the very first Christmas design I ever offered as a punch needle pattern. It's very primitive, very simply done, and I always wanted to redo him a little bit, make him a little bit more refined. When I first started out creating designs for punch needle embroidery, I wasn't very good at drawing. I did the basics and that was it. And over the years I've taught myself and I've improved, at least I think I have. But I can do a little bit more now. So I wanted to refine him a little bit. And I've tried to do that with several of my designs, and some of them just would not cooperate. Some of them obviously were meant to look a certain way and they wanted to stay that way, but I have been able to do 2 of my Christmas designs. Winter and Woodstock is the other design that I was able to upgrade and revamp a little. But I took Old Father Christmas. I wanted to include him in this book of templates, so I redid him, and basically it just, he's a little bit more, obviously he's facing in a different direction, but he's just a little bit more realistic. There's a little bit more shadow, there's a little bit more movement. He's wonderful both ways, I think. So it just depends on the look you're going for, but we are using this revamped Old Father Christmas for this particular project. However, if you have this project, because many people do, he's one of my most popular patterns. If you have this template and you would like to use it, feel free to do so. You can follow along, use his pieces as a template. I would suggest enlarging him, you know, maybe by 25%, make him a little bit bigger, and use this template, and you will have an even more primitive design on your hands. You could, if you have the pattern, of course, do that, or you could purchase the pattern on my website. It is available. I also put this option under the Stitch With Me series tab, or you can find this under my punch needle pattern. So either one will work. Just know if you use this design, he is obviously going to look a little bit different, and he's not going to look the same as this design. So either one will work. You are welcome to use either one. I will say, if you purchase the book of templates, we are going to, or I plan to, stitch several projects from this book for the Stitch With Me series. So, you know, keep that in mind. If you wanted to purchase the book now, we will be doing future projects from this book. I'm not sure which ones or when, but I do plan on doing that. So it is completely up to you which one you wish to purchase. All right. Oh, let's see. I think we'll get started on supplies, and then we'll get busy with tracing our template pieces. Let's see. I want to put my notes here so that I make sure to cover everything. I did a trial run of this video yesterday, and I felt like I left out a few different things. So let me see. All right, yep, supplies. So let's go over the supplies you are going to need for this particular project. Obviously, you'll need your template. I've already said that. You'll need a variety of scissors. I use several different scissors. These are my preferred scissors, and by the way, the supplies list and where you can purchase them, and I even add I'm doing a basics of wool applique video with, well, the basics, but with all my favorite supplies and where to purchase them. But I'm not sure that that is going to be on the YouTube channel before this second project, before this November project. So I will be sure to link where you can purchase my preferred items below the video. But I use these wonderful Karen K. Buckley scissors. They're the smalls, and they have a nice serrated edge. They make a world of difference when you are cutting small pieces of wool, which of course we have small pieces in this project. Oh my heavens, I swear I can hear the bluebird singing outside the window. It's just torturing me now. I'd heard about a snow lover living here, and it's been sent here to torture me. Okay, so you'll need wool cutting scissors, a small pair, but you'll also want a large pair of wool cutting scissors because you'll need to cut your background pieces of wool, and they are on the larger side, and a large pair of scissors is handy. You could also use a rotary cutter and mat if you prefer, or you could rip your large pieces. That works as well. But just know you'll have a bit of a frayed edge if you rip it. Okay, so you'll need large and small pair of scissors. I like to have a small pair of scissors like this to cut my threads. It just helpful to have a quick pair. These I just tend to save for cutting the wool. These I use for my threads. You can, of course, use one or the other for that if you prefer. You will need a pair of paper cutting scissors. These are Fisker's office scissors. I use these solely for cutting paper. So you'll need those to cut your templates. I really hope I'm staying in the screen. You'll need a pencil and a marker, one or the other, or both. I tend to trace my template pieces onto my freezer paper with pencil, but then I will often go over them with pen, if time allows, which I'm not sure it will for the purposes of this video. Let me see. Oh, okay. We will need freezer paper. You are welcome to use freezer paper from the grocery store. It comes on a roll in a big box. You can use that. If you choose to use the grocery store freezer paper, you will need a light box or a sunny window to transfer your design. If you use this, which I love and always use, this is called Quilter's freezer paper. I mentioned it in my first video series, but in case you didn't watch that one, this is Quilter's freezer paper. It comes in 8.5 by 11 sheets, and it is very transparent, so you can see through it wonderfully. So there is no need for a light box or a sunny window. You simply lay the sheet over your template and trace. So one or the other. You will need your wool. Now for this particular project, as you can see, there's not a large amount. You'll need 2 pieces. I'm not going to give you sizes because I'm listing that below the video. But you'll need 2 pieces. This project, which I should have mentioned before now, is going to be a pillow. An 8 by 12 inch pillow. So you'll need 2 pieces, one for the background and one for the back of the pillow, which it doesn't have to be wool on your back. You could put any backing on your pillow that you wanted to. But I'm going to do this wool on both sides. This is hickory textured wool. So that's what I'm going to use. Then you will need, let me grab my list of colors so I am naming them right. Oops, that is not it. Okay. You will need army green, which is this one. Keep in mind, the light on my film stand, my phone holder, it's a holder light combination. Anyways, it's very bright. So the colors that you see on the video are going to be more vibrant than they actually are in person. I didn't want anyone to think, oh, well, that doesn't look like what Doreen's using, because what Doreen is using is the name of the color that I'm telling you in the supply list, but I did notice when I watched the videos it appears brighter, so don't let that throw you. These colors are very primitive, very wonderful, and I of course give you the color names, so trust me, those are the actual colors I'm using. So you'll need army green wool, you'll need a small, this is all you'll need, a teeny tiny little square of a face color. I suggest sand dollar or Olde Straw, parchment or biscuit, all from Blackberry Primitives will work fine. This is Olde Straw. Oh my gosh, I love this color. But sand dollar is wonderful. Any color that you would like your Santa Claus to be, choose that, or gosh, find a scrap around your house. It's a teeny tiny bit. You'll need pear wool, a small bit of pear wool. You'll need either parchment or biscuit. I am using, and I put this in the supply list, I am using wheat pale from Woolen Folk Art. She has an Etsy shop. I have a bunch of it, so I wanted to use it. But I did notice when I went to do the supply list that she only had 1 piece left, and that may be sold out by now. So if you cannot find the wheat pail from Woolen Folk Art, Blackberry Primitives has several other options, and I list those in the supply list. Parchment is a good substitute, or biscuit. Biscuit to me was the closest. It looked almost exactly. So feel free to grab those for yourself. So you'll need that, parchment or biscuit or wheat pail if you can get it. Then we have red velvet for the bag. And this is just a larger piece of the army green that I will be using for his coat. So that's just why I had a couple separate sizes here. So as you can see, it's a small amount of wool that you'll need. Now, if by chance you wanted to create the beard and hat fluff, or the mustache, and if you wanted to create the fuzzy, snowy hair look that he has on his hat trim and mustache, you could even do the beard here. You'll want some wool roving, which is what this is. This was 2 or 3 times more than enough. So you really just need a teeny tiny amount, but you will need felting needles and a foam block or nice cushion such as this to do your felting on, because you can't just felt into the table or anywhere. You need a block. There's foam blocks that you can get. You could order yourself a nice little felting kit if you did want to do this and you wanted to purchase a few supplies. I found all this at Gray Fox Felting. And this was a last minute additive, so it's not on the supply list. So I'm just mentioning it here. If by chance you want to give your Santa Claus, a fur look, you'll need wool felting supplies, and Gray Fox Felting has everything you'll need, okay? She even sells there's a card that comes with 3 felting needles. I only have 2 here. The card is somewhere else, and you'll need a little bit of wool roving in the color of your choice. I liked the white, but an off-white would look, I usually go for an off-white more than a white, but this is just what I had, so that's what I used. Okay, so that's what you'll need for wool and the roving if you choose to do it. You'll need a thread. Now, when I began this project, I had intentions. Excuse me for one moment. And I apologize if there's blurring going on with the camera trying to go in and out of focus. Anyways, when I began this project, I had every intention of using this Weeks Dye Works kohl because I tend to use it on all of my wool applique pieces and I love how it looks. But upon stitching, doing the initial stitching with this guy, I'm finding I don't love it. I may use something else. So I'm going to list, in the supply list, I'm going to leave the threads totally up to you. I'll tell you my options that I'm thinking about, and you can make your choices. You can use 1 strand of the kohl. Well, we'll go over in each thing, but generally on a project this size, I would typically use 1 or 2 strands of this kohl, which I love. But I feel like it's because he's small, I feel like the dark thread is taking away from the look, his overall look. So I may, as we stitch along, I may use this Summer Brown from Coats & Clark, which is what Maggie Bononomy uses, and she loves it, and it works well for her, and the reason she likes it is because it lets you focus on the items you're stitching, so the individual elements of the design, more than focusing on the threads you're using to stitch them down with. So I may use this Summer Brown for this project. And I may use this Gutterman thread. I like this Gutterman thread. It's, I don't know what it's made. Oh, it's polyester. Okay. And it's color number 22. I'll have to write that down for you because they don't go by names. They do use numbers. But I may use that for the lighter areas, but I may stick with the summer brown. Right now it's up in the air what I'm going to do for stitching. And I apologize for that, but as I said before, I film these as I'm creating them, so things can possibly change. So we'll play around with that as I go along. And I typically like to do a blanket stitch, but again, I feel like the blanket stitch maybe is taking away from his other elements and the look of him. So I may just do a whip stitch. So we will see. He will evolve as we go along. When I did this guy last night, I was looking at him and I definitely could have used a lighter thread here, but last night when I stitched this, I really liked the darker stitches. Today I don't like it. I don't know if that's just me being argumentative or what's happening, but I'm just feeling he's not coming together how I wish him to come together. So we'll see. Hopefully I'll have a happy result. All right, so you will also need some small embroidery pins. I like to use these little small clover glass head pins. You don't want a longer pin because they will tend to get in the way. You will also need, now this isn't absolutely necessary, but it's extremely handy to use when you're stitching small pieces because a pin sometimes is too big for an item. So using a glue is extremely helpful to hold those small pieces down so you can get them stitched. And this is Roxanne Glue Based It. It's a light temporary basting glue and it works very, very well. Oh, you may want some wax for waxing your threads. That's totally up to you. It's not necessary. I do like to wax my threads. It keeps them from knotting up. And of course, you will need embroidery needles. For this project, because of the thin nature of everything, you'll want a fairly thin needle. You don't want anything real fat that's going to make a really big hole. So just, and again, I've mentioned this many times, but you may just be seeing this video for the first time. I am not good about embroidery needle sizes and knowing what these needles are, but I will tell you that a size 6 Hiroshima needle, such as this, these are number 6 embroidery needles by Hiroshima. They will work wonderfully for this project, and I may find myself using them. I find them to be a little too short for my liking most of the time, but I may end up using them for this project. It just depends once I get going how I'm feeling about it. And I believe that is it. We have a couple of other thread choices. This is Gentiana thread. This is wool and acrylic thread. It's very, very nice. It sinks down into the wool beautifully, the wool beautifully. It sinks right down into your project, so you don't really see the threads. So that's a nice option. These are the only 2 colors I have, so they're really not going to work for me, but if you wanted to find threads like that to use, you certainly can. All right, so let's get started. Let me check my to-do list. Make sure I'm covering things as need be. Set this guy aside. Move my abundance of supplies back here. All right, so the first thing we need to do is break our template up into pieces. When you have a ready-made wool applique pattern, everything of course will come on a separate sheet and your template will already be broken up into pieces. But for something like this, and from a book of templates, you will need to do that yourself. So what I do first whenever I'm working on a project is I will write down on the template what each color or what each element is going to be. That way I can group my colors together on my freezer paper. And that is completely not necessary. It's just something that I do. And then I'll count up the number of template pieces I have. This particular project will have 15 template pieces, or 14, depending on how we break up the beard and mustache. So we'll get there in just a moment. All right, army green. And the hat is army green. I don't know why I have checks all over this. I don't know if you've noticed that, but it looks like I have several checks on here. Okay. Oh, and also the boots are going to be army green, which of course we can't really write that in there, but we'll write it small. Okay, so 4 elements will be army green. And then we have a red bag. I'm just going to write red. I know it's called, what is it called? Red velvet, but I'm just doing red. And then we have a red mitten. So 2 red. And then the pocket is done with our pear wool, and this collar is pear. So there's 2 pear. Oh, and by the way, for this project, I'm not going to do the letters on my pillow. You are welcome to do ho 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 down the side of your pillow. I just am not going to do it for this project. If you do it, enlarge these so that they are easier. If you try to work with those tiny pieces of wool, you'll pull your hair out. Okay, so let me see. Then we have our face, which I'm using Olde Straw. But again, I suggested sand for you guys. So I'm just putting Olde Straw. I felt a little bad writing on his face like that. Olde Straw. And then now, because of the wonderful modeling that comes on a fat quarter piece of hand-dyed wool, and this is the case, sorry, my asthma is bothering me and the talking is irritating it. Because of the wonderful modeling that comes on a hand-dyed piece of wool, you can get 3 or 4 different tones from one fat quarter piece. So for all the elements that are light in nature, so the beard, the mustache, the coat trim, and the cuff on the sleeve, or the hat trim, those are all going to be from the same piece of ivory colored wool. I'm using the wheat pail from Woolen Folk Art, but my suggestion for you is parchment or biscuit. All right, so I'll just place these template pieces on a lighter or darker section, and that is how I'll have them be close to each other, but yet still be from the same color group. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, so wheat pail. Wheat pail. Wheat pail. So that's 3, and then wheat pail is 4. Now let me talk about the beard and mustache. We're going to cut out the beard and mustache as one piece. I know it appears to be 2 pieces, but we're going to cut it out as one template piece, and then we are going to simply put a stitch line right here to make it look like two separate pieces and give it a little bit more depth with our stitching rather than cut it out as two separate pieces, because I cut it out as two separate pieces when I did my initial project, and it was quite a pain to work with, but it didn't look very good. It was hard. It added too many stitches and it didn't look very nice. So we're just going to make this one piece and add a stitch line right there to give it a little bit more depth. So 1, 2, 3, 4 of wheat pail. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, let me see. Oh, 14 pieces. 14 template pieces. Hold on one moment. All right. I can't erase that because I don't have my eraser here, but hopefully you can read that. So 14 pieces total. In this list, I forgot to add the boots and the army green total. So there's 6 army green pieces, not 4. Oh, that is 15. Oh my word, I can't count today. $13, $14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay. I'm not crazy. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay. So apparently we only have 14. Good gracious. That was hard. 14 total template pieces. All right, let me grab my freezer paper. I don't know where it ended up. There it is. Okay. Oh, okay. See, good thing I wrote notes that I can check on. The tree. I didn't include that in my template pieces because we are going to stitch the tree from a stem stitch. So the tree does not need to be worried about as far as template pieces or freezer paper. That is going to be completely done by way of the stem stitch. Okay? Now, when I do templates, I will group my colors together in one area. I still cut them out, but I just group them together because, as you can see from a moment ago, I have trouble keeping track of how many pieces I have. So I just tend to group them together, and that just keeps them in, one area so I can easily count. And it's easier for me to figure out how much wool I need for each area, for each color. All right, let's see now. Now, when you take a template like this, as I mentioned, you need to look at it and break it up into pieces, which we just did. But you also need to make sure that when you trace each element, you create one fully finished template piece. And you sort of will have to, I'm sure you all know this, but in case you don't, in case this is the first time you're doing wool applique and you don't know how you're going to break things up, this part of the jacket is going to be one template piece. The arm is going to be another. Then we have the top of the hat up here. Then we have the boots. But as you can see, partway up this coat area, the arm is in the way. You just simply create a line and you continue on. And I'll show you how I do that here. Now, just remember when you are doing template pieces, be sure to draw the lines exactly as they are, because if you don't do that, when you go to butt two pieces up against each other, they won't line up. So it's very important, which it's hard for me to do at this angle. I do better when I have this a bit closer to me, so hopefully I'm able to trace these nicely. For the most part, everything is going to, in this project, everything is going to butt up against each other. You know, the design elements are going to meet each other side by side, except for the Santa sack, which will lay on top of a couple of the elements. All right, now I again will write the color on my template piece. All right, so we have that army green piece. Then I'll trace part of the arm, and I'm only going to do this area of the arm because this is a separate piece. And this is a good example of how you need to add a line to close the template piece. So we've got the arm, but as you can see, the arm the drawn line stops right here. Hold on. The drawn line stops there, but you of course need to create a full template piece. So just simply add that line so that you have a full piece, full template piece. Green. Now we have our boots. I'll trace those right now because I tend to forget about the boots. Now the boots, well, you'll see it as I do it. Let's see. One of them is a full boot. And then the other one, I guess we'll put it down here, is much smaller, but give that a little bit more shape. Like, just pretend you can see it a little bit better than you can, and make it look, you know, really just the boot without the heel. It'll just be easier on yourself if you do it that way. When you go to cut it out, it just won't be such a small, thin piece. And then we have the top of the hat, which I'm going to lay sideways on here. And there we have our army green pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ah, that is where I was messing up. There was only 5 pieces. Okay. All right, let's see. Over here, we'll put the bag. I tend to make my thin pieces a little bit thicker when I trace a template. So that line right here, when I cut this template piece out, I might make it a little bit thicker just because thin pieces of wool are hard to work with. You can do it, but it's easier if you make them a little bit thicker. This is part of the reason why I apologize. I need to turn this or else I'm not going to be able to trace this properly. This is part of the reason why I thought that I needed to incorporate the, oh, I apologize for the phone ringing. Let me turn that down. I needed to incorporate the thinner thread, the summer brown, and the other Gutterman thread, and perhaps not do the blanket stitch because it just was really messing with the hold on one moment, messing with the shape of the elements that were on the small side. So I think the blanket stitch is going to have to be excused for this project. All right, so let's see. Then we have the mitten, which I think I'll put right up here. The pocket is another example of a piece that looks like two pieces, but I'm actually going to make one piece. The pocket appears to have a trim on it, but I'm going to make it one template piece, and then we'll simply stitch that across there to give it the look of having a trim. And then we have this collar area. I usually film in the dining room. Today I decided to film in the studio and never gave a thought to the fact that the phone might ring and cause a distraction. All right, 2 pear, 2 red, 5 army green, 1 Olde Straw, which we'll put down here. All right, now we have our light pieces. As I said, the beard and mustache are going to be one piece. And then we'll stitch that dotted line once we get moving. Wheat pail, excuse me. All right, this top of the hat. Coat, well, let's do the cuff trim right there. I'm just going to put a WP in there because that's a small area. And then we have our last piece, which is this coat trim. Another example of the lines needing to to be traced exactly. Because when we go to butt these two up against each other, if their lines aren't the same, they're not going to lay properly. So let's hope I did a good job of that. We'll find out when I go to lay it out. This outside line isn't so much of an issue, but this inside one is. Wheat pail. $14, what do you know? Okay, so let me set this fellow aside so he doesn't start to confuse us. And now we're going to cut out our template pieces. Now, a lot of times when I do my cutting of template pieces out and my wool, I will leave the grouped pieces together. I'll cut them out as one. So I would cut them out like this. And if I wanted just simple bit of, if I wasn't worried about getting different tones in here, I would simply plop this entire template piece down onto my wool and iron it. But with smaller template pieces, that's not really the best way to go, because when you're cutting out your small template pieces, you want to be able to use these scissors with a serrated edge, because this type of scissors without a serrated edge, your wool can slip and slide all over the place, and you'll lose the shape and look of your small template pieces. So in this case, I cut each of these little template pieces out before I iron them onto the wool, okay? I'm not going to show you the ironing onto the wool, just because that'll make this video way too long, and I will just simply tell you how I'm going to do it, and then I will iron them on the wool off camera. To cut out your template pieces, you simply just cut them out exactly as the lines appear. And with a small template piece and the serrated edge scissors, that is so much easier than if you tried to do it when it's attached to the wool, because the paper and the wool slide in different directions, and it's just quite frustrating. So it's just so much easier when it comes to small elements to cut your pieces out ahead of time. And I'm sure this is going to bore you to tears, because you really don't need to sit here and watch me cut out these pieces. But thankfully, through the magic of edit, I can speed this up and you won't even, it'll go by quickly. And there we have our template pieces all cut out. And now all I will simply do is take each piece, if I can pick them up, place them on, gosh, that's a tiny little face piece, place them on their wool, and then all you do is you heat up your iron, no steam, and simply just hold the iron down for 2-3 seconds and then lift it up, and it should just stay. If it doesn't, hold it down a little bit longer. Don't move it back and forth, just press it down. So there's those. Let me see. As you can see, these pieces are bigger than we need. So these projects don't really take a lot of wool. I'm just going to put those on top of each other right there. Now, as I mentioned with the different color tones in different colored wool, or one single piece of wool has 3 or 4 tones. All these 3 color tones, hopefully you can pick up on these tones, are from the 1 fat quarter piece of wool. This one in particular is the wheat pale, but this is the case for any type of wool, hand-dyed wool, that is. So the long coat trim will be from this one, and then I will do the beard and mustache from that, and then I will do the hat trim and the coat trim from this tone, and there's 3 different tones from the same piece of wool, and we'll just give a little bit more realistic, shadowy, light look to things, which is the whole reason I choose the different colors and things that I do, is to give my pieces light and dark, shadow and such, because that's, to me, makes it look more realistic. Now I'm going to use this darker side of the red because that's just what I prefer. Hopefully this piece is big enough. Yep, okay. And our mitten I'll put here as well. And then we have the army green. Now, oops, okay. I'm going to do the coat. Let me see if you can see what I'm doing here. Here we go. The coat is going to be here. Yeah, I can do the coat from right there. And then I'm going to do the top of the hat right next to it. I'm going to do the boots from the darker bit of green. And I'm going to, I think I'm going to do the sleeve from the same as the coat, because of course I'll use some dark thread probably on that to give it a little bit more distinction, I guess. Or should I? You know what? I think I'm going to make the hat from the dark. Nope. Oh my gosh, you're going to shoot me. I'm going to do it all light, just because with the dark black background, the hickory background, I feel like the lighter will be better and stand out a little bit more. But the boots I'm going to do from the dark, and I'll also do the sleeve from the dark. That'll give that a little bit more depth. All right, so there we have all our pieces laid out. All I need to do now is press the shiny side down of your freezer paper, of course, onto the wool. Press each one, and then we'll come back, and our next bit will be cutting out the template pieces, the wool template pieces, and laying them out on our background. All right, so I will meet you back here once you have your template pieces ironed onto your wool.